different conversation. As you can see, we have a full panel here today. So for today, our goal today is to be able to talk about the startup space, and I have a bunch of top black professionals in the startup space today, and we're going to be able to talk about that. And first, from my left, I have Donald Hawkins here today. Excited to have you here today. I got Janae Gamage here with me. I got Joshua Lewis here with me, and I got Charlotte Clark here with me. And as you can see, there's so much power on the stage here today. It's making me nervous, but we're good to go. We're good to go. We're good to go. So, anyways, first of all, I'm gonna give it right to I'm gonna give it Donald Clark, Donald Hawkins. Give us a brief about yourself.
Yep, Donald Hawkins. I'm the founder and CEO of Kinley. We're a neobank focused on helping Black America build generational wealth.
My turn. Janae Gamage, founder of Base Ventures, and we create softwares that help founders.
Yeah, I am Joshua Lewis, the founder of Up Down App Inc. It is the social media for nightlife.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Clark. I guess I'm kind of a startup consultant. I've worked in a variety of different ways through accelerators, first employees for startups, consulted with founders one-on-one.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna ask the first question. So it depends. I don't know who I want to go with this, but let me see. So the first question is, what is the difference? Because I feel like I want to know this. I've never really got to understand it. What is the difference between a startup and a small business? Who wants to take a tap at that? Want to take a tap at that?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Zeke. No, I mean that's a broad question because technically startups are small businesses, and small businesses can also be startups, right? So I think a good breakdown that helps a lot of people is the difference between more like technical and venture backable startups versus lifestyle and brick and mortar small businesses is a better way to kind of look at it. There are businesses that you can not have to worry about raising capital. Like you can go after grants, you can go and get, bank debt. And then you have the venture side of things with a lot of tech companies where you have to raise outside capital from VCs and sometimes private equity investors as well to build it. But they're very similar, but entrepreneurs kind of have to make the decision of what their goal is. There's the big outsized returns from the unicorn type companies or companies that are worth over $1 billion, or you can be a really solid zebra. And I feel a lot of zebras are winning nowadays too.
Mm-hmm. So before you pass it, what is a zebra? Explain that. What is a zebra?
Hey, y'all get a lot of acronyms and a lot of names today. So zebra essentially is a company that might be worth a few $1 million.
Okay.
So just anything under a unicorn. So
okay.
Unicorn used to be like this hallowed status of companies that are worth over $1 billion. KC has a couple in C2FO and also Pay It.
Okay.
But now a lot of founders are starting to realize that if I can build a path, to build a sizable business, that hey, I can flip this thing for $50 million or $150 million and go into my next venture.
Okay. Do you want to take a bite at it, or Josh, you want to take a bite at it?
Yeah. I mean, essentially, I think it's everything that he said for one, but then that scalability aspect, when you add the ability to scale fast, quickly, I think that puts you in that startup realm, right? And essentially, like he said, startups are small businesses, but when you talk scale and being able to get to those X numbers in revenue or users or things of that nature, I think that puts you in that startup realm. But it's essentially what he said. It's pulling in money from outside funding rather than being able to bootstrap it the whole time, or just run a day-to-day business like a small business.
Okay. So I guess my next question will probably be in line with the first one, which is I know that you guys have a technology company, you also have a tech company. Now my question would be, why did you choose to be a startup instead of a small business?
You want to take it first?
Yeah, you.
Honestly, man, I when I think of it, like I said earlier, the scalability piece, just a really big dreamer, big vision, wanting things to affect billions of people rather than thousands, right? And so I think that's what put me in that space. The with us having a nightlife company and 200 million people partying daily, it was only right that we tried to attack the world rather than our area.
Exactly.
And so essentially just the big vision, the big dream is where I started with.
And I would say, for me, similar to Joshua, having seen how much money, especially the Black community, spends at so many different businesses and, the Amazons, the Microsofts of the world, but always realized it was always tough to find people that looked like me
Mhm.
doing those same things. And, was very fortunate at a younger age to have a mentor that helped me get rid of my fear of failure. And similar to Joshua, just wanted to go big. And if I flame out on the way, I'm hoping somebody learns from that too.
Yes.
I have also owned a brick and mortar business. That is not for the faint of heart. It's a whole different set of problems that you run into. But on the tech side, there's problems that come with that too. One other quick thing to double tap that I think it's important. Every entrepreneur that I've met that is bootstrapped tends to be jealous of entrepreneurs that raise capital. And I can promise you, entrepreneurs that raise capital are always jealous of the entrepreneurs that bootstrap too. So you have to figure out what's right for you.
Yeah. So Janae, for you, I know that you have Base Ventures.
Mhm.
So why did you go that route?
So for me, I mean, it kind of goes back to the first question about what a startup is versus a small business.
Yes.
I think operationally, it just looks a lot different. I like the pace. It's ever changing. It's like a living, breathing organism that you're kind of raising up as you build a business and hit your goals and all that.
Yeah.
So I also had a brick and mortar. I had a gym that I sold, and it is a different set of problems, but I do like how the day changes. I
Mhm.
think I got really bored with running a small business and the monotony of just go to work, do these things, do this, do the budget, do the accounting, and go to the next day.
Mhm.
With a startup, today you're putting out this fire, tomorrow you're talking to an investor, the next day you're flying to Chicago because somebody is interested. Like it's a whole lifestyle, and I just fell in love with that.
Yes. So Charlotte, for you, I know we've kind of talked about this on my show a little bit, but what is the need of being a startup consultant? What is the gap you noticed, and why did you go that route?
Yeah. So I'll first say that I was really drawn to startups because of some of the scalability. I have a software engineering background, so having that was really important to me to be able to still impact people with the technical background that I have. As a consultant, I really like being able to just talk to founders and hear their problems and be able to kind of articulate and think about that problem in ways that you can solve it. I think the biggest thing that a lot of people who are interested in startups and who may have not started that journey is that they don't even realize that most first time founders don't know what they're doing. So when you don't know what you're doing, but you're building a business and you got to figure out who are my customers and all of those things, there's gaps that kind of show up in that process. And being able to be a consultant to find those gaps and be able to be okay, cool, this is how we solve them, either together or separately, is really what has drawn me to be a consultant in this space.
Just to touch on that, I think it's really key. She said most first-time founders don't know what they're doing. Most Black founders, first time, second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, sixth time, 10th time, don't know what they're doing. And I know we're here because of us being Black and in this industry. And I think that is very, very important to know that even the other races don't know first time. So think about the Black ones that are starting their business out the gate. They really don't know, right? And so that puts us in a space where we should definitely discuss that.
And to normalize that just even a bit more, and not just Black folks. I mean, a lot of the founders that have been able to create businesses that are household names for us, if you look at their history, and it's littered with failed companies, right? And I think that's just across the board because one, the market changes. Now a lot of folks are building companies to be completely remote. Models change, and a lot of times, especially on the tech side, investors actually prefer to see failure in companies and founders that they talk to because they know you don't want to go through that again. And sometimes it more than likely statistically will still happen, but that's a normal part of the process. I feel what holds us back as a community is that fear of failure prevents us from starting. So we have genius Albert Einstein level ideas that are in the ground right now simply because of fear of failure and also what we think our community might think of us failing too. I'm the crazy person in my family because I'm an entrepreneur. I accept it for what it is. Just, I told my mom and my sisters, tell folks I'm unemployed. And I'm just doing some crazy stuff on LinkedIn, but that's a part of it. We got to normalize that.
Yeah, it's very intense too, because when you think about that from a perspective of investors and people that are trying to give you money, the thing that they always try to say is that they are investing in the founder. And Blacks, us going into it thinking, okay, if you're investing in me, I really, really want this. That's really not what they're talking about. What have you done from an experience standpoint? What have you built before? What have you sold before? What have you failed doing before, right? And it's more that, and a lot of the times with us not understanding the industry or not understanding what people are looking for, we get lagged behind, right? And so like even with a, you know, say you have a company that is doing semi well, being able to get it acquired or get it sold fast to flip and go to the next one is actually a good thing. But a lot of the times we like, you know, we're building a business and this is my baby, this is what I want to do. And that's just because we don't understand how the turn rate goes in this industry. And so I think all of that goes into what he was saying.
You want to add anything to that?
No, go ahead. It came and then I'm gonna save it.
So I mean, because I hear from both of you, what I've heard so far is a lot of failure, which actually changed the. I met with, I don't know if you guys have ever met Chucky Ukobi. I met with him and he changed my perspective about failure. He calls it feedback in the sense that you get a feedback every single time you fail, right? And my perspective that is a lot of people see all of you here on stage and say, man, they are successful, they are killing it, but they never see the behind the scene that happened. All the years no one knew about you. Now, I want to ask this question, having that in mind, what were those days like and how were you able to not only get feedback, but elevate from the feedback to learn better, to become better?
Those days are still here.
Yeah.
You said those days like they're in the past. I think you never, no matter how much money you make, no matter how successful you get, you fail daily. Like that's just a part of the process. Everybody has their different coping mechanisms and how they deal with things. So that's something I don't really want to touch on. But as far as understanding that you're going to fail going into things is really just how I deal with it. Like when you fail or something messes up, you're like, oh well, duh, that was supposed to happen, right? And so I'm gonna just keep going. And so I got this team motto in our Slack, and it daily, we if something happens, right, a fire breaks out, it's like everybody puts into the Slack, keep going, right? And it's a motto that you have to develop for yourself. But essentially, man, the problems don't go away, the failure don't go away. And you don't want it to, because like you said, it's feedback, is what you learn from. And so essentially, I wanted to speak first because the those days piece triggered me. I'm like, they still here. They still here.
You learn to lean into failure. Just to piggyback, honestly, if everything seems to be going too well, like I haven't made any mistakes, something's wrong. Like there's no way. You know what I mean? When you're doing something new, you're doing something big, you're going to mess up, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to get advice from the wrong person, all the things. So like I'm always looking back on, the past weeks, the past months, like how can I shift here? And if I don't see anything to shift, like, no, you're making a mistake right there. You're failing right now. Something is about to go wrong.
Charlotte, you want to take a peek back at it?
Yeah, I think especially in a startup space, part of that framework is being as lean and as possible to be able to pivot, because failures are going to happen, but it's really kind of the way you rebound. And when you know you're going to fail, you're able to really put in the right amount of work and not too much of that resources in, so that when you do have that fail, you're able to pivot fast and you're able to rebound from there. And like Joshua said, that's like you're going to do it all the time. And so you just really got to be able to rebound and learn from your mistakes and like move forward. And that's really the time where that failure becomes a success.
Flexibility is key.
So let's come home to Kansas City. Knowing that everyone here is top entrepreneurs in Kansas City, top Black professionals. I want to ask this: what is something that they say that Kansas City is one of the fastest growing cities in terms of entrepreneurship and startups? How is that for the Black community? How was that for you guys? How is that going?
Who said that?
Open up the can of worms.
How, Sway?
You don't know the answers.
Statistics and listicles. I mean, those things happen. Like, and I see so many different cities get ranked. You're 25th on the list this year. The next year, you're 13th. But the people on the ground, we're looking around and we're trying to figure out how that happens. I would say for Black entrepreneurs, especially, there are a number of socioeconomic problems. We were just talking earlier about how a lot of the funding opportunities, in this metro area are down in Johnson County. But a lot of the diversity in the area is also here in the urban core. But there might as well be the Great Wall of China, on I-35, between those two different entities. And there are programs here that do their best to try to bridge that gap. But the truth of it is, it's all about relationships, and a lot of Black founders, especially, don't go to the same church as the funders. They don't go to the same school as the funders' kids. They don't golf at the same country club. So how do you develop those relationships and collisions to be able to normalize that? And then let's take it a step further. People tend to do business with folks that they like. But if you don't work hard to develop relationships with people that don't look like you on both sides, then how are you going to cross that threshold? It takes special people to be able to look past that, to do the right thing and invest in businesses. So for us, I mean, one other thing I wanted to tap into from the previous question was, one thing that I feel entrepreneurs can do to really help themselves from failure is, one, always prospect that it's going to come, forecast that, but live in the middle. Because what messes a lot of entrepreneurs up, and Charlotte touched on it, is the swing of that pendulum. When things are going really well, and then the next day something happens that's equally as bad, those swings are detrimental to your business. That's how people burn out. But if you take the great things that happen with the same middle mentality of people that, of things that happen that are bad, then you expect it to happen. It's like, oh, that sucks. And I realize as entrepreneurs, we're actually the crazy folks, right? Because the house can be burning down. We tend to be the most metered people. Like, oh yeah, this is a problem, but everybody get in a single file. Let's go and get this and fix things. Whereas most folks, the house is burning down. What are we going to do? That's a normal thing. But in Kansas City in general, I feel the best thing that we can do as entrepreneurs is realize that no one is going to fix our problems. And not just in entrepreneurship, I think the Black community as a whole, we are going to have to be the ones to come up with the solutions that we need. We might not be happy with the way things are, but we're going to have to find a way to work with each other. I was telling the panel here that the angel investments that this community needs is going to come from us. We're going to have to build our companies. We're going to have to be the ones to invest. That might mean Kansas City is a few entrepreneurial generations behind, right? My estimate is we're still probably 2 or 3 entrepreneurial generations away, from investors having that right mindset to be open a little bit more to risk, which is really a selfless position for us, because we might be like, listen, we're just based here, but we're really not going to be able to go out and get the capital that we need from here. And that's okay. There's a lot of capital outside of Kansas City as well.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind for me is audacity. To piggyback on that, like, in the Black community, I feel like we're audacious when it comes to a lot of different things outside of business. And I think that same level of audacity, that intensity we have for how we look, how we are perceived, how we, what we feel like, the cultural aspect of life, we are audacious when it comes to that. We own that. We really run that. But when it comes to business, we have to be just as audacious, right? And I really pride myself on that. Is like understanding that whatever room I walk into, white, black, green, or orange, I'm going to be Josh, and I'm going to be Josh proudly, right? And I'm going to build and talk about the things that I want to build and talk about, and I'm not going to apologize for it. And so I think that same level of audaciousness we have for the culture and the trending things we need to have in business, because that's what controls it all. And once we connect those two dots, I believe is when it'll really make sense. But like he said, we probably going to be the generation that have to go do it elsewhere and then bring it back, right? And that takes a special person to do that.
Remember, you guys want to take a bite at it?
Go ahead, Charlotte.
I was going to say that when I started being a consultant in startups in 2020, I attempted to do it here in Kansas City, and it was really hard. I actually had to kind of go outside of Kansas City nationally. I had joined a lot of Facebook groups and had really talked to a lot of people outside of this space in Kansas City, and got a lot more recognition and understanding there. And then in 2021, came back I guess, focused a little bit more inside of Kansas City. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, wow, like you're doing crazy, awesome things. It's like, wow, I was doing this like a year ago. And like everyone else was like, yeah, cool. Like good luck with that. So I think that Kansas City as a community is like sectioned off in a really strange way, in which you have to, like Donald said, like know the right people, have the right relationships, and then you're like kind of taken more serious. And that's, I think, a problem because, there's no way to really impact the group of people you want to impact if you gotta, move through and know the right people and say the right things in order to be taken seriously. I think especially for founders in this space, that can be really discouraging when, you might have a genius idea, but because you don't know the right people, how are you, going to be successful? And why is there that, gatekeeping around people and resources?
So I have a quite a different perspective because I actually came here from the DMV and moved here to Kansas City to start my company based on, one of my mentors and just having conversations and just being in that ecosystem and seeing how disjointed everything is. And it is very much who you know, but in a space that big, that's a lot of people to know. So when I came here, I noticed also disjointed, but much easier to navigate that and make the connections you need to make. Luckily, one of the first people I met was Mr. Donald Hawkins.
That's a great introduction. That's great.
Yeah.
You in.
Yeah, and he kind of helped me navigate that a lot quicker, I think, than I probably would have been able to do alone. So I also think that because I knew being new here and not knowing anyone or who to talk to, I made it a priority to build relationships. And I think a lot of founders don't put that as first on their list. They put it as, I need customers. I need to build my business, and not realizing that building relationships, one of the things I always say is people over profits, founders over everything, if you've met me. And what I'm saying is relationships, you will get the profits from relationships. I built relationships with Donald, who introduced me to this person, this person, this person, this person, and customers came from all of that. But all I was doing was having conversations and meeting people and just talking about my business. I wasn't saying, will you sign up for my business? You know what I mean? But now I've met this girl, Janae, and she's building something that you need. Let me connect you guys. You know what I mean? So that, yes, a lot of ecosystems are disjointed, including Kansas City, and we're behind in all the things. And there's a lot to be said about our ecosystem and what needs to be fixed. But I also think that as a founder, the first priority, no matter where you are or what you're building, is relationships.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Did you want? Okay, cool. So my next question because I really want to touch about on Audacity, and I want to touch about being able to connect with people and be in those rooms. Because when I think about it, I think about each one teach one, right? The fact that you met Donald, like that's like a great way to enter into the entrepreneurship community.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like Joshua, like Charlotte, like everyone on the stage is direct link to the entrepreneurship space. Now, speaking on that, and also the what Charlotte talked about, the gatekeepers, how do we help and push our community into those spaces, and how can we make sure that it's more accessible? It's a loaded question.
Yeah,
Gatekeepers gonna keep. Like, there's no if there's a gatekeeper, there's a gatekeeper. You can try your best to maneuver around, but I just feel like you're putting energy in the wrong place. If you're a founder, there's so many things that you should be focusing on outside of how can I get around this person to get here. If there's a gatekeeper in this specific area that you need, move to the next. Like, who cares? There's gatekeepers everywhere. I mean, that's my perspective on it. I just don't care about that. Like, I'll find another way type of deal. I'm just very gritty, scrappy. I don't care.
For me, I think the biggest thing is education, is like understanding the context around whatever that gatekeep is. For example, like venture capital is like maybe one of the biggest, I think, gatekeepers in the startup ecosystem. And recently I've been watching a video course on venture capital and realizing that there's just like so much education and information around VC that founders need to know that would maybe change a founder's perspective as like, should I even really be talking to investors? Should I even really be trying to get VC capital, trying to raise millions of dollars, knowing that like there's going to be immense pressure on you? And I think that that's the biggest thing, because you could try to, run at the wall head first a bunch of times, but understand the context around certain situations might help you to kind of shift and move around that. And knowing that like there are alternates, as Janae said, there are other ways to kind of get around that space. That doesn't necessarily have to be that you have to go through it and you have to build the relationships and you have to figure out the way to move past that gate.
So you want to talk about it?
I mean, it's just, my thing is it's not one way to get things done ever. The gatekeeping word, I don't even really like it. It makes me cringe. I think whatever you want, and this may sound cliche, but it's the truth. Like whatever you really want to get done, you can get it done. Nobody is actually standing in your way to do so. And when you develop that mindset, you don't actually even see things as gatekeeping per se. And I'm a firm believer in that. Like I've been asked that a lot lately, like, who's the gatekeeper? And I'm like, of what? Like there's a million ways to get this done. And essentially I'm the one doing it. And so I understand what people mean when they say that. I'm just a big advocate of like that actually not being a real thing, to be honest.
One other thing to add to that I think is important just for the resources to also be mindful of too, is that I've seen a number of people in and outside of Kansas City where them being a gatekeeper or holding the keys becomes a thing, something that provides them a level of power. And sometimes when you're in the forest, you don't realize that you aren't doing as much as you probably can to help the ecosystem as a whole. And I think it's just healthy to remember the mission of why you're doing what you're doing, because if it's at a point where entrepreneurs feel like you're being detrimental to not only their growth, but the growth of the ecosystem, change is also needed. It's also why a lot of boards have term limits, because after a certain time, you might not be as beneficial to that board as somebody else with a new train of thought or a new lens as well. And I feel Kansas City, definitely has a lot of good resources, good folks that I can name that I know are actively doing the best they can to really help entrepreneurs. There are also people who could be doing more, right? That I could also name that I'm also having conversations with to hopefully kind of open things up a bit. But I really kind of agree with the panel here that, the solutions that we want are going to come from us. It's just a big world out there. Kansas City is one metro area out of many metro areas that we can tap into, and relationships definitely matter. The unfortunate part is that it takes a lot of additional work for Black founders to develop those relationships. But guess what? We persevered through a lot more, right? Entrepreneurship is light work. I tell people all the time, my dad integrating his high school as the first Black person, that's a heavy lift. You gave me that option. I'm taking all the perils of entrepreneurship every day. Fighting in the deep South just to go to school, that's a fight, right? And I feel like we have to remember that we stand on the shoulders of giants. The fact that we can sit up here now on this stage and talk about entrepreneurship, knowing where we came from, that in itself, right, is a victory. But we now have a responsibility. What are we going to do to take things to the next level? Which is why we have to create these solutions. I mean, Z, you might be the new gatekeeper. In fact, why aren't you the gatekeeper now?
I think that just to piggyback on it, like a lot of people, because I feel like I've been doing Black entrepreneurship panels for the past year now, and a lot of the times when we're in these settings, it feels like the narrative is that we struggle or we're at a disadvantage. And essentially, I mean, if you can look at it like that, but I challenge people to actually look at it as an advantage, right? So like he says, where we come from, we've already dealt with worse. And that actually makes us more equipped to be doing what we're doing, right? And so entrepreneurship is light work. Entrepreneurship is easy because of what we've already been through. And we have to start like changing the narrative and thinking in that manner, right? Like we shouldn't always sit on a panel and talk about how disadvantaged we are in the realm of entrepreneurship. We should say, actually, we built for this. We're the best ones to do it because of what we've been through. And so I think the mindset change is something that has to, I mean, really might even have to be first, just in the sense of understanding that you're already above everybody else. You're already the best at this because you've dealt with worse. So
if you want to see some real innovation, tell a Black person no and watch them work.
Real talk. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say yes to that because I feel like taking the mindset of an advantage instead of being disadvantaged keeps you approaching like, there's only one option is to win, and you can only find solutions or you can find problems. So you decide what you want to find. So I know that in the space where it's like, oh, it's going bad, it's going good, but there are people who are making it happen, and I have all of them here on the stage. You know what I mean? So it's like it's possible to be done, but it's how are you going to make it possible? Now let's talk money. I like to talk about money. So I know a lot of people today want to know, what is venture capital? I want to ask everyone here who can explain what that is, and then we can dive deeper into that. Who wants to take a bite of it?
Charlotte,
money.
well, Charlotte got the course fresh on her brain now.
She'd be a course right now.
Charlotte, give it to us. Give us all the deets.
Okay, well, I will disclaimer this and say that I am not a VC, so like I'm coming from an outside perspective. But venture capital is an institution in which they have a fund of millions and millions of dollars, and they're trying to recoup that investment. And so by doing that, they are investing capital into founders, into startups, hoping that, in 10 years, that startup blows up. They make $1 billion, and whatever they put in for that exchange of equity, they can get a return back. I think the biggest thing that I've learned from this course I'm taking, that is something that is talked about a little bit, but like super tangible in the way that they talk about in the course, is that VCs know that like 7 out of the 10 startups they fund are going to fail. So they're banking on 3 of those 10 to like recoup the investment of the 7 others. So like when you think about it like that, you're under so much pressure depending on you get a $500K check or a $1.5 million check. But that VC is hoping that at some point you're going to boom, you're going to get millions of dollars. And so like that's really the mindset that comes into play when they're kind of funding startup founders.
And more the mechanics too, to add on to Charlotte's comment, a lot of venture capital firms are made up, at the bottom of limited partners, LP. So these are the actual angel investors and institutions and corporations that actually invest in those funds. And even within those VC funds, there's different levels, principals, analysts, managing directors. And depending on how you develop a relationship, like there's a strategy where you can work your way through to that investment committee. VCs are also under the gun, literally, because when they raise fund one, if that fund does not have a decent return rate, it's going to be hard for them to raise funds two. So it makes them very selective in who they invest in. Sometimes they bet, you know what, you're probably not going to be a unicorn. They might not even tell you this, but you might be a solid zebra, right? That can help us, increase, the AUM, of the fund and the return rate there as well. So their strategy to all of it, but similar to what Charlotte said, we have to expose ourselves to how that system works. That we can beat slavery,
Yeah.
and a lot of the other things that we've had to overcome.
Yeah.
Like we just have to apply ourselves and really understand the mechanics of the system, and find a way for us to work. There are also a lot of Black funds now too, more now than they've ever been. There's some pros and cons, around things that we still have to do, with those fund sizes. There's also the mechanics around how much an investor could actually invest. When you hear people tell you things like, hey, it's just as easy for me to write a $5 million check versus a $500,000 check, it's the truth.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they go through the same amount of diligence and all the different things. But I'm pretty sure we're going to dig into more of like the VC stuff, but I'll stop there.
Yeah, that's textbook execution. I was going to talk about the LP side of things and how they're actually under immense pressure, which is why you shouldn't be as a founder, to be honest. Knowing that they're actually doing the same thing that you're doing, but just in a different way, should give you the confidence to know that they're just a person with somebody above them telling them what they got to do. And that mindset, I think, helps. Back to the audacity piece, that mindset helps founders have a little more audacity when they step into those rooms and talk and understand, to know that, you know, they don't know it all because they're actually pulling their money from somebody else as well. And so I think from a textbook perspective, you just got it all. So I think it's all mental. On the other side of that is just understanding that they're literally in the same position you were in.
So I'm gonna ask this. So what puts a company in the right position to get that first VC meeting and have it go successful? What are the steps or the things that you can do to keep you in the right position?
I don't even know if that. Yeah, it's probably you right here.
I've never had a problem getting a first meeting. That's not the problem. It's getting to the second meeting, the third meeting, and what puts you in the position is coming into that first meeting, almost looking at it like a date. Like, I want to go on a date with you again, essentially. So I know as I go into my next venture and I know that I have to raise, there's no way I'm bootstrapping this. One of the things that I've been doing is immersing myself, just like Charlotte, and just having conversations with VCs and associates, not even on some, can you write me a check, but just like, what's your investment thesis? Like, what type of companies are you looking for? What are you, and I'm making a mental note, like, okay, this is probable. And I'm also, my mindset with raising is not like, I need you. It's like, listen, you need me. I'm trying to see who's the best candidate, because even outside of the money, like, they are with you. They have a piece of your company. I know how I am and how I work and how I like to run a company and what I feel is best and how I want to support the people, my team that are helping me build this company. And if you're going to get in the way of that, $5 million, $10,000, like, I can't do it. You know what I mean? So I think going in with that mindset shift and also being able to realize they need you and there's a reason they need you. So what are those reasons? And do you meet the need? Because you might not. Like, they meet your need, but you might not meet theirs. Right. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing, again, from my perspective, is not a person who's in VC, is kind of understanding from a founder's perspective what your process and the work you've done up until the point in which you're asking for funding, and the work that you know or that you think you're going to do moving forward. In a startup space, that word, I think, embodies traction, where you're really thinking about, like, okay, I have talked to X number of customers. I know that they, are really experiencing the problem that I'm solving. I've had 60% of them say that they would love the solution I'm building. And you're really being able to concretely show that the work you've done really is going to work in a market. And then as you move forward with this funding, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to hire people? Are you going to build your product? Do you know what you're building, past the point in which the fund's running out? And really being able to answer those questions in a concrete way. I've met with founders and I've seen founders try to dance around questions, and it's not a great look, because it kind of shows that you don't know what you're talking about. And so I think the biggest thing is really being clear on what you know and what you don't know. And I think there's a level of vulnerability in that, but being, of course, confident in your solution and confident in what you're building, but knowing that, like, at some point you're going to have to shift and change, even in that space.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that too. I feel Janae touched on something. I think the most important thing to have before you even think about venture capital is like the mentality, right? Because I've definitely been in that mode where I'm going to VCs for help. Like, please help me, help me build my company. And that's a quick red flag, quick no. Because if you don't have the confidence to feel like you're going to make me a lot of money, and you can go to any other VC and get those funds, why would I have confidence to cut you that check?
Mm.
I think what Charlotte talked about is also maybe the second thing that I think is just as important, which is that internal due diligence. Like, know your numbers, right? And don't go to VCs until you do. Because even though being vulnerable is good, unfortunately, being Black and vulnerable in the VC space,
It's
not a
not.
good mix,
Yeah.
right? So, but guess what? What's different from that from the workplace? We know we have to be better. We know we have to do more than our counterparts to be able to make things happen. The VC space is not different. So know your numbers, double check that. If it doesn't pass the sniff test for you, if it doesn't pass the sniff test for people in your network, it's not going to pass for VCs.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is too, go to VCs at the right stage where you're heaviest. I've seen so many founders really be pre-seed stage companies, but try to go raise seed rounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's an easy no.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have traction, so don't do that.
Yeah.
Be a heavy pre-seed stage company, right? And I think Charlotte touched on another good point. There's ways as an entrepreneur that you can get traction without capital. And a lot of that can simply be research. A lot of that can be having a designer design, UI, UX, or some mock-ups, for your prospective product. It can be a letter of intent from a big company who says, Charlotte, if you build this for this price point with these solutions, I'm interested. There's so many things you can do, and I tell founders all the time, or spin up a squeeze page, get people to join a wait list. That's how I was able to do it to get the ball rolling. So everything doesn't necessarily have to be about raising capital to get traction. Like, there's other things that you can do to really build that kind of interest from VCs. And when you meet the VC, have the mindset of what you want to get from them, and don't be afraid to ask them questions. It's a dance, it's an interview. My early career, I was going to the VCs, letting them ask all the questions. I didn't ask anything.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see you push back,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't typically share that with each
Yeah.
other, so we don't do it. So I want to expose that. And I've been called arrogant, right? Because I feel sometimes founders, you have to be on that line, and where people can sometimes confuse confidence for arrogance too. No, but if I'm going to ask you questions that you're not accustomed to getting from somebody that looks like me, that's on you.
Mm.
That's not a me problem. That's a you problem,
Yeah.
right? But you need to know, because breaking up and breaking away from a VC is literally more difficult than getting divorced.
Mm.
So it is critically important that you make sure you get the right capital partners
Correct.
as well.
No, I agree. It's really to piggyback on everything everybody said. I have a I'm really big on words and like planning out my thoughts, but I have a VC mode where I go, it's research, set my own standard, and press. And so for me, it's every VC that I discuss anything with, before I do my research, their portfolio companies, things that they've invested in, how much money do they do have on, or AUM that they do have. And I think when you know that, you can say, oh, well, I'm wasting my time, right? So you weed out a lot of the extras, right? Which speeds up the process. And then you get to set your own standard. Really, essentially, as a founder, you got rounds, you got pre-seed, seed, series A, on and on, right? But you set your own round. Like, it's what you need, because the VCs don't know what you need, right? And so you have to develop your own standards as far as what you're going to take from people. And I say take because I'm not going to ask for anything, right? This is what I need, and if you want to get involved, this is how it works. And I think those two things out the gate, you have to kind of develop for yourself, to be able to like put in the hours to research things, but then also to set your own standards. So when you create your round, you know exactly what you need and what parts. And then that press piece, this is big for me because I've leaned into it heavy. As a Black man, I think that a lot of Black people in general are our strongest thing is that people love us. Like, I don't think we lean into it enough. And if we do, I think it's in the wrong areas. And so for me, it was like being a Black man from another city, having the swag, the audacity, the X, the Y, the Z. I need, in order to get in front of these people without having to ask or talk to them, they need to see me elsewhere, right? They need to see that what I'm doing is big enough. They need to see that what I'm doing has some real influence behind it. And I think Blacks across the world, we influence everything, right? Essentially, that's what we do. And I think a lot of the times there's ways to lean into that. And so those three things for me are always, when I'm in raise mode, I as much press as I can do, I'm going to set my own standards, and I'm going to be down to do all the research needed to get it done. And so.
And also too, a lot of those rules don't necessarily apply for angels that we've talked about too. Angel
true,
investing
totally
in
true,
angel,
totally
raising capital from angels is a whole different song and dance from venture capitals too. And you might not need VCs. Angels might be sufficient.
correct.
I was gonna go into angel investors, but I don't think we have enough time, and I don't know. I know you guys are on the couch. My back is hurting me. I don't know. My back is hurting me the whole time. I'm like, golly. But anyways, so I have two last questions. I'm gonna put them together, and then we're gonna end this. But I want to ask this first. Are there resources in terms of either venture capitals, angel resources, funds in Kansas City, that you guys have seen or available? How can people get that? And secondly, because I know that Donald and Charlotte, you guys are talking about how kind of venture capitalists ask questions that are not supposed to be asking and stuff like that. Are there some things you guys have noticed when going to the venture capitals or funds that didn't rub you right, and you think if this can change, it would be better? So this is gonna be a question for everyone. This is our last round, and then we're done.
Oh, you want me to spit off the top of my head resources? I'll just focus on one type of startup founders who are trying to get their business started. KC SourceLink, the SBDC, UMKC Innovation Center, Innovation Lab. Me and Charlotte both consult with them. You can get a business development consultant, tech venture. What are the startup courses? Startup boards.
SBIR.
Yeah, I mean,
They all-
if you
SBIR.
go here, let's say this: go on KC SourceLink, get on the resource rail, and look at all the resources available to you based on whatever you need.
I would say, as far as books, the Lean Startup book, highly, highly recommend. The course I'm looking at, the book, it's based on a book, Venture Deals by Brad Feld, I believe. Also, like, it'll tell you all the things you need to know. Other resources, I can't think of any right now, but I would say consultants, just because I am one. People who work for startups have seen and talked to a lot of different founders, have seen probably a lot of the same questions or problems that you have had, and probably have really great advice for you. So I'm going to shout out all the consultants, because they'll definitely be able to point you in the right direction, as far as whatever stage or whatever space you're in.
I would also say for some other resources, there are a number of accelerator, for seed stage and pre-seed stage companies. Definitely look out for those. A lot of those come with funding, some don't. But depending on the stage of your company and the help that you need, like there are a lot of those resources in town and just in the Midwest in general, and a lot of those are still virtual, right? So I know a lot of founders were able to get decent investments, without having to leave the comfort of their own home. And then there are also a number of kind of piggybacking on one thing that Janae mentioned earlier. If you're early enough, the age old adage of, ask for investment, get advice, ask for advice, get investment, that is true, right? If there's a specific VC fund or capital partner that you're interested in, get to know them now while your idea is completely early. They're not looking at you for, I'm gonna write this founder a check right now. It truly is, I'm now a part of Janae's journey. She reached out to me on week 3 of her having this idea, and now 6 months later, she has 2 LOIs, and I got her connected to all these other different features and companies, and that really makes people buy into, your venture as well. So find those mentors, find those funds, and truly go in to pull information out without asking for something in return.
They've said it all from the research perspective.
So I think we have some questions from Facebook. We are gonna take those questions so that way. Okay, so we got a question from Mark. He says, "How important has it been to talk about your exit strategy with VC?" Who wants to take that?
I would say you don't have to go into detail, and it all depends on where you are on the date. Meeting number 1, very light, right? It's a song and a dance. You're learning more about them. They're learning more about you. If it makes sense and they fit your thesis and you fit their thesis, as you get into further conversations, is good. But that's a conversation, something that Charlotte mentioned earlier. Like, know what you're doing. Like, if you're going in this thing to be a zebra, letting a VC or an angel investor know that that's how you're looking at it is actually a smart thing, because a lot of founders don't think about the end. And when they get asked that question, they get tripped up because, like, oh yeah, Facebook's going to buy me. How, right? So, I mean, so have a general idea around other companies in your industry and how they've exited and use that as a baseline.
Yeah, essentially, I mean, what he said is totally true. I think like talking about it and knowing it is two different things. You want to know, semi know what your exit strategy is within yourself and within your business and company. But talking about it is two different things. Like, like you said, it's just based on the relationship, who you're talking to, and understanding if you need to at that time. Because a lot of the times on the first conversation, it's not really the case. You just need to, they really just want to get to know your business. But that exit strategy is just something you should know rather than be super, super excited to talk about all the time.
Do we have more questions? I think we have a bit more questions on there, which is good. We got people. This is good conversation. So, okay. So this one is from Imani. It says, "Why would you reveal that? Why would you reveal that right? Okay, why would you reveal that right off the bat? Okay, I don't know where we were in the conversation. That was way back then. It's another question there. That was way back. I don't know where we were in the conversation. If we can rewind life, we could just go back.
I think that is a response to the question that was asked before that we just answered.
Like the exit strategy.
Okay, it's a follow up. My bad. So yeah, so it's why would you? Oh yeah, okay. So why would you reveal that? Yeah, whoever answered that?
I think Mark needs to answer that.
Yeah.
That question was for Mark.
Yeah, that was she was asking Mark.
Oh,
yeah.
she was from. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. It's not about us. So I guess that's the last question we have. Okay, cool. I'm like, I don't know. Okay, cool. Sweet. All right.
I don't need permission to
So-
do what God has already given me. Can I please?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I think with the okay. Cool. So we will close out here. Thank you guys for coming today. But before you go, please shout out your socials. How can people reach out to you if they want to connect with you? I'm gonna start with you, Donna, since you have the mic.
LinkedIn, Donald Hawkins, Twitter, Donald Hawkins _. I'm working on my TikTok stuff, so it's coming. I'm building up a video. Kevin says no. All right, so never mind. LinkedIn, Twitter.
Same. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. All of it is Janae Gamage.
For Instagram, it's charlotte.a.clark, and for LinkedIn, it's charlotte-a-clark.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually say download our app. So you don't have to hit me up at all. Just download Up Down App Inc. if you drink, party, or have a good time.
Sweet. Yeah. And I was with Joshua. I'm not gonna say a lot, but we were out there. We up down that life. It be happening. That's all I can say. But anyways, thank you guys for listening today. It's been your host Zeke Wanganga, and this has been another FiredUpKC BXKC collaboration. Sweet. Oh yeah. So also shout out to Keystone for being a sponsor for this. Thank you guys for having us in this beautiful space. You guys need to come and check this out. But anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. You know what to do. Follow BXKC, FiredUpKC, all social media, and my social media is Zeke Wanganga, LinkedIn, Instagram. You don't want to go to my TikTok. I have a lot of stuff going up there. Don't go to my TikTok. Just Instagram and LinkedIn. Now people are gonna go to TikTok.
Yeah, you should have said.
I should have said that. Yeah, just go to my Facebook and say anyway. So thank you guys for tuning in today. It's one of the is your host Zeke. See you guys on the next one. Bye for now. Yes. You. Okay. Cool. All right. We can just. Yeah, I'm like, do we cut? Let's take a picture before we. Yeah. Yeah, let's sit down first. Yeah, and then take a picture with those, and then we can stand up. Yeah. Yeah, you could end it. Yeah, they don't need to see all that.